Good morning, everybody. Welcome to RVA Connected, and our next guest on our podcast. This is real. This is live. This is who I am. Sometimes we mess up because you know what? We're human, right? So, but I am so excited, super excited to have Melissa Ice on with me today. We've met a couple different times. We've met virtually, we've met in person, and I feel like we've actually met before we met as well too, if that makes sense to
Yeah, it
anybody.
does.
So yeah, but it's probably one of those things. Maybe you're just a familiar or something like that. But I'm
Maybe.
super excited to have you here today.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to be here. So, yeah.
Well, you're the owner of Seven Hill Design, right?
Yeah.
Seven Hills Design, right? Correct.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so it is a local home staging and design company focused here in the Richmond kind of area, surrounding counties. I'm actually in Chester, but I serve the Richmond metro area. And what I do is help sellers and real estate agents prepare their properties for listing. So that looks like helping them know how to basically visually market their properties so that their photos are going to stand out, their home is going to stand out when they're showing, and just kind of knowing what to pre-pack, all of that encompassed. And then I do design work as well. So either kind of like a refresh, kind of almost like a staging to live. And then also, I have a client right now that's getting ready to onboard who is she wants to kind of change up some different colors, keep a lot of what she has, but she's just like, help me know what to purchase and kind of how to put it together. So, a lot of different things there. And then, of course, we do Airbnb, and just kind of wherever the wind takes us sometimes. So,
I love that. So you say us. Is there a team of you?
no, there's not. So there is a team in the sense that I have movers that I hire for,
Okay.
when we go into vacant properties. And then my husband sometimes teams up with me if it's a smaller team. So he likes to tell people that, he's the muscles. So that's kind of the team.
Right.
And then all of my little team that I pull together of, either virtual assistants or social media. So
Okay.
kind of the background team. Yeah.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about the home staging when you're getting ready to sell, because I think that is super important. I think of when we were getting ready to buy our home here in Chesterfield. I remember seeing, so our home had been listed and it was taken down and then it was listed again and it was taken down. It was very weird. It's like one of those things like, what's wrong with the property
Right.
and why does it keep getting listed? And,
Yeah,
like,
for
are we
sure.
buying the money pit?
Yes.
But I remember going back and looking at the pictures, and the original pictures that were taken were awful, like absolutely awful. Our home is beautiful. And I'm not just saying that's because it's our home,
Right.
but there's so many homes that are beautiful. And you go and you take those pictures, and they make the home look awful, where
Yeah.
people are like, why would I ever buy that? That's
It's yeah,
no.
yeah, it's for sure true. People don't realize, I think, and oftentimes it's really overwhelming when you're selling, right? You're doing all the
Yes.
things, you're thinking about, oh, what maintenance things do I need to do? You've got a agent telling you to sign different documents to get, those things ready. And so then you're kind of like, well, the last thing I want is somebody coming in and telling me, my home looks bad.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of people's kind of expectation. So it is super important though, because then they don't realize either until after those photos go live, or just in general, they don't realize that how they're going to present. They kind of think, "Oh, I've decluttered and I've, maybe done a few things and that's going to make it presentable." And it definitely does make it more presentable, but it's coming in and kind of what a stager is going to do for them is help them know what the camera is going to see. And it's going to help
Love
them
that.
know what things are going to either photograph funny or photograph maybe as like clutter. And kind of what you're saying, it's also going to help them accentuate those beautiful things in their home. And so it's really interesting because a lot of people still don't understand that, I think. They kind of think of vacant staging, right? And that's pretty easy in one sense. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's like, oh, you just go in, you kind of have a blank slate. You can accentuate all those things really easily because you don't have to deal with the personal as much. And so yeah, so it's interesting to me because I do both. And one of my big things is I think the stat, I don't remember where it's from, but it's about 80% of homes that are listed are occupied while being listed. And so
Okay.
there's quite a few homes that they can potentially be missing out on more equity more money sitting on the table because they're not presenting their home and all of the beauty that it has to offer for people to be able to see why it's worth what they're asking for. And yeah, and so it's funny that you say that because I've had a few other stories recently come up where it's like the house was listed and then it went off the market, or it stayed on the market, but then people were worried, like, well, why is it on the market? What's wrong with it? And those are
Yeah.
all things that we kind of want to keep from happening.
Right.
We want to keep from people going, what's wrong with this home? So yeah,
Right, absolutely. Because when that happens, then the home is automatically devalued, right? It's not,
exactly.
it doesn't have to be devalued, but people automatically it's almost like buying expired milk. I mean,
Yeah.
right, you're going to go to the grocery store,
Yeah.
if it's getting ready to expire, they put things on sale because they're trying to move it
Yeah.
out, right? And so I think as a society, we've just sort of adopted that mentality to everything in life, that if anything is sitting too long, no matter what it is, then it's not worth as much from the day it was originally put on the market, created, whatever the case may be. So let's talk a little bit about the process of like, what does that look like? Because like you said, so somebody's getting ready to sell their home, they're already anxious enough to, okay, now I have to sell it, I have to find a buyer, and what's that process going to look like? And then I have to, if they're buying a new home, then I have to find a new home, and oh yeah, I have to get movers, or I have to move myself, and I'm moving my family. Like there's all of these things that go into it. And so I can see how what you offer would make that process easier. But as a seller, I could be like, oh, that's one more thing that I'm adding to my plate. I now have to have a conversation with her about what to keep or what not to keep. So talk to us a little bit, help us understand that process so we can sort of demystify it, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to what we call kind of occupied staging or occupied staging consultation, the first thing is it always starts kind of with that consultation. So that's the
Okay.
baseline. And so with that, what we will be doing is we will be going to the home, and then we're going to go from the outside all the way through the home with the sellers and the realtor if they're there. I like to have my realtors there at least the first time so they can kind of get an idea of what the process looks like. But we're going to go through the home and we're going to be helping them. They're going to get like a whole folder full of tons of information, but then they're also going to have kind of a walkthrough guide. And that's going to give them all the recommendations for kind of base recommendations for each room. And then they're going to have a space to make notes. And we're going to be going through there, giving them recommendations on what to pre-pack, what to rearrange, if there needs to be rearrangement in furniture placement so that it flows better and photographs better. We're going to be giving them cost-effective update recommendations if needed. So if they've got really bright paint colors that we know are going to really bring down kind of that buyer interest, then we'll be recommending, paint colors to neutralize, and doing a lot of that things, as far as neutralizing the home and helping them know what to take away and then what to keep, because we also don't want to sterilize the home, right? Oftentimes you kind of think, and I like this term that a stager uses of there's a Google stage, right? You can go online and you can kind of Google, pre-pack or declutter and deep clean, but that's not going to be specific to each home. And just like each
Right.
person is specific, each home is specific, the needs are different. And we're focusing again on highlighting those architectural features that may be there, the benefits that each home has, and kind of those fixed assets. So it's going to be doing all of that. We go all the way to the backyard, giving them all those recommendations on how to get the home ready. And then from there, we typically will send over a quote if needed for occupied staging. And that might look like if they have pieces that we've recommended just to help highlight the home and they want to rent them. So that's us coming in and rearranging for them, getting it ready, kind of photo ready, and bringing in any accessories or artwork that might be needed. And just basically almost like a photo preparation.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the process with occupied. Vacant is a little bit the similar, but not quite as much. We'll still do kind of a property preview to know what the home looks like, and of course have photos so that way if we're going through and actually staging the home, we know, okay, here's what we have and what we're working with color wise. How do we accentuate that and make sure we bring in those right furniture pieces to again do the same thing, highlight that home and its features.
Okay. So is the process going to be, okay, it's obviously you're going to come through, you're going to do your walkthrough and have those recommendations. Is it then do you have basically two options where a homeowner can just go and take those recommendations and implement them themselves, or they can say, which is my favorite thing, is hiring people in their zone of genius, like what they know to do, because what will take you probably 2 to 3 hours to do would take me days, right, to
Right.
complete. So I would rather pay for somebody's expertise rather than doing it myself, because time value money, I could be doing something else that's
Right.
more productive for me. So are those sort of the two options? Because I know
Yeah.
that if I were to ever do that, I'm like, nope, don't leave me to my own devices. It will you'll say, hey Anna, I need to get it done by next Friday because that's when the photographers, you know,
Yeah.
gonna come, and then I'm, Thursday night at 11 p.m. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
let's get started.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then they show up and everything's everywhere, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those are the two options. You kind of hit the nail on the
Okay.
head. So it's going to be once I leave, it would be they have all the recommendations to do it themselves. But again, like you said, I love that process of coming back. I think a lot of times sellers kind of think, oh, we're going to save some money, right? We're going to do it ourselves. But again, it goes back to the expertise. It's like, what do you want to save, your time or your money? And then as well, those recommendations, they've still got to go make sure that they're either buying the correct artwork that's really going to accentuate the home. And then they have to know how to, hang it properly. They have to know how to rearrange it, all of those things where it's like you can do it yourself, right? If you're really great in elbow grease and all that. Like you said, we can come back off of that consultation we've done. We're going to know we do photos. We're going to know exactly how to come back in and get it ready. And we're going to have even the inventory, or even, there are homes where we may not have a certain inventory based on what they need. And so we're going to do that shopping ourselves to be able to come back in and make sure that the property is, shown to its best light with the correct artwork, the correct placement, all those things. And so, yeah, you kind of hit it on the head.
I love that. So what do you think your clients' biggest challenges are?
So it's kind of twofold, or I guess two different things. So seller wise, I think both actually would be the same in some degree. It's kind of seeing that value of
Okay.
what we're bringing to the table. A lot of people kind of see it as an extra when it comes to selling, and they don't see it as an investment, which the stats have really shown that. Typically, I want to say it was 2022. I'd have to go back and look, but I want to say it was 2022 that the study was done, and it shows that we believe every dollar spent, you see a return of $5.86.
Pretty
So
good return.
yeah, so you're looking at roughly, it equates to like 586%, but of course you break it down by that dollar. And I will say personally, even for me, I did my home about a year ago. And of course, I've got other stories, but my personal home, I did spent roughly between 3,000, maybe 4,000. We were in a market where it was really starting to slow down. It was Christmas time. Our agent was really worried, even from the beginning, of like, hey, things are slowing down right at your price point, and maybe we should offer concessions right out the gate. And we were like, okay, let's trust this process and see where it goes. And if we need to come back and reevaluate that in the next week, after we kind of see what the market does, then we'll do that. So we listed on a Friday, we did an open house on Saturday, and we had 8 offers, I believe it was. I think it was 8 offers. Within 48 hours, our traffic
Wow.
was double any home in its price point. And then we had double the foot traffic in open house as well. And then we sold for 15,000 over asking. So
Love that.
yeah, even and I think one of the things that's hard too is a lot of people, especially with the market the way it's been the last few years, are kind of like, oh, well, we don't need to do anything because it's going to get a billion offers,
Right. Right.
and we're guaranteed. And so that kind of goes to the other point that I was talking about with one of my clientele is realtors, and kind of speaking to why this is a benefit to them as well. And that's that it's not only is it a benefit obviously to their sellers, but it's a benefit to them because it's building their brand.
Right.
It's building their brand, and their photos are going to stand out. And, right now, I mean, competition is fierce, right? But when sellers are going online, they're going to look and they're going to notice those agents who have the best looking photos, who have the best
Absolutely.
looking houses. And so this is also something that's going to help them in the long run. So yeah, so those are kind of the two things that I would say are biggest challenges, is just seeing the return and the value in it.
Yeah, absolutely. so being in the industry that I am with owning two magazines, people talk about ROI all the time, right? And ROI is antiquated term, especially with the amount of information that's out there, but being able to see the value. And again, going back to hiring somebody in their zone of genius, the value is not just, I spent $3,000 and I got $15,000 over asking. It's also I mean, it was your home, so it's a little bit different of a
Right.
story, but
Yeah.
like if that had been me, then the time and money that I would have saved going out and shopping and getting those things and also trying to prepare my home and all those, and then possibly the loss of money from working my business instead. Like there's so many other ancillary things that it's not an apples for apples. And I try to tell people all the time, but as humans, we focus on one thing, right? But I can see where when somebody who truly gets it, they're going to see big picture. They're like, okay, I'm going to spend $3,000, but I'm actually the $15,000 I'm going to make over asking, plus my time, plus
Mhm.
this, plus that. I'm
Yeah.
actually coming out $30,000-$40,000 ahead,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even for
So,
sanity's sake, that was one of the
oh
biggest
yeah, I
things
mean,
for us
mental
too.
health. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, I think one of the things is, you can never guarantee anything. And I
No,
tell clients that, like, I can't guarantee you that you're going to make more money. I can tell you what the stats show. The stats show that this is
correct.
still a wise investment. But for us and all of the people that I've consulted with, just even the time on market that gets reduced typically by staging saved my sanity so much from having to
Right.
worry about, oh my goodness, I've got 3 kids, I've got a dog, I've got a cat. We've got to, I mean, you get that call or that notice that a
Uh-huh.
showing's coming and you're like, oh, here we
Everybody
go.
out.
Yeah, our circus goes out this way. And so, I mean, to have it reduced, and not bothering our family and day-to-day
Yeah,
things, and that was worth its weight in gold too, because you saved that aspect of dealing with
absolutely.
the upheaval. So
Right.
yeah, totally get what you're saying.
I love that. So being a small business owner, right? Because that's what we are and who we are is we're small business owners connecting. What do you think has been your greatest success? And choose one or the other: greatest success or greatest challenge in being a business owner.
Oh gosh, let's see. Greatest success or greatest challenge? I think for me, it's been, um, I would go with challenge right now. And I think my biggest challenge is not getting stuck in kind of all the things that go with business, of kind of seeing too far futuristic, especially in my situation. My husband's in the military, so that's one of the reasons we're here in Chester. And so it can be really hard to not think like, oh my gosh, we're going to move in 2 years. And
Right.
what does that look like for my business? And should I be doing this? And should I be doing that? And, kind of all the questions that come with it. And so my biggest thing is having the ability to be like, okay, let's just focus on the here and now, and
Yeah.
let's not get too far ahead. Let's plan, let's, find those resources, but also not get stuck in kind of being like, well, I shouldn't keep moving forward
Right.
in my business. So I just kind of go back to, okay, it'll be taken care of when it's time to be taken care of, like it'll be
Absolutely.
figured out. But yeah, that would be my biggest thing, I think, right now.
I love that. Okay. So thank you for sharing that because it's good to think big picture, right? Like where do you want to go? What do you want to do? But there's also a lot of beauty in just being in the moment as well
Yeah.
and just taking things how they currently are today. So who would you love to connect with? Like who would you love to work with?
Yeah, so I really would love to connect with, again, realtors, especially
Okay.
ones who are wanting to stand out in the market. And so there's a couple ways that I do that as well. I actually have 3 events coming up where I'm doing seller seminars, basically. It's a
That.
stage your home workshop. And so that's one of the ways I try to help my agent partners bring in those leads. So we do that. And then, of course, there's obviously the aspect of the staging and how that brings, more business to hopefully those listings and more buyer interest. And just a couple other ways, there are ways that I'd love to just sit down with realtors and share with them how we can help them in that way. Because my biggest goal is I want them to see that we are kind of a cheerleader for them and a cheerleader for their sellers, that we're here to support them through that selling kind of process and up to that point of listing and even beyond as much as we can. And that we're not here to just kind of get in and out the door and just, and that there's so much more even to staging. I have so many agents who do the walkthrough with me who are like, I never even thought about the things that you brought up, in a consultation. And so that's where I'm like, I want them to see that I'm trying to bring them that help that they don't, I love another phrase that another stager says as well is an expert is somebody who knows something you didn't know you needed to know. Um,
Oh, I love that.
yeah. And so it's that I'm always wanting to be open myself to learning and growing in whatever aspect. And I know that a lot of the agent partners I work with are the same. And so you don't know what you need to know until somebody
Right.
tells you. And it's the same a lot of times when I go in those consultations where they're an expert at, getting the house sold and they've got great ideas, but then how can I come behind you and help you know even more to boost your listings and help your sellers see you as kind of that standout agent who is like, man, they knew even more, like they were worth their weight in gold and what I paid
Right.
to help them help sell. So, yeah.
I love that. And I love the whole collaboration, right? Creating this network of individuals that just support one another, and the
Yeah.
one building block helps the other building block, and we just reach for the stars.
Yes, yes, for sure.
Awesome. So tell people how they can reach out to you and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook under Seven Hills Design, and then I'm on Instagram as well. So Seven Hills Design is VA, it's
Okay.
Instagram. And then, of course, they can reach out on my website. I have my contact information. That's Seven Hills Designs. That one actually has an S at the end. So
Okay.
sevenhillsdesigns.com, and they'll find all my information there. There's a scheduling link if they wanted to have coffee just to even meet and, kind of see how we can maybe work together if we're a good fit. And that, of course, I love because I can bring information for them and just kind of show them the folder that their clients would get and kind of walk them through this process so they can know. Because, of course, again, it's all about that collaboration, but you want to know that who you're collaborating with is going to make you look good, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
so those are all the great ways, though, that they can reach out.
I would love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. That was a wealth of information and a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have even thought of, right? So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that with our audience as well too. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for listening. If you want to reach out to Melissa, definitely do that. One of the platforms and the all of our show notes will obviously have her contact information for you to reach out to her as well too. And sometimes coffee is just really good with a friend and then you just develop a new friendship. So I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
I'm always drinking coffee. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you guys for being here. Stay tuned for the next episode. And as always, my friends, stay fluid. I'm always cheering for you.